Hey everyone, Shaun Stevenson here, author of the Throne series, and yeah, no, this is not my regular recording spot. We have recently moved, if you haven't been following along on the channel, and so I don't have my library set up just yet, and I'm kind of waiting a tiny bit to do some reveal for that, and I don't have all the books up yet. So here we are in the living room to record this video because I have actually gotten out of a little bit of a reading slump. During November, I read one book. Just one, that's all. And I have been feeling like, oh man, I really want to get back to reading. I want to get back into it. And I was reading a book at the beginning of this month that just slowed me way down. So I decided I'm going to set that book aside for right now. I'm going to pick something else up. And what did I pick up? A library book by R.L. Stine that was perfect for the Christmas season. We went to our local library and I went and I looked and I saw this on the shelf and I thought, I have not read that book. That's a great book for the Christmas season, so why don't I pick it up and read it? What book am I talking about? None other than Young Scrooge by R.L. Stine. Now this book is really fascinating because this is a Christmas Carol retelling. So if you've ever read A Christmas Carol or seen one of the many adaptations of that story in the Muppet Christmas Carol, the best version of all, or the old radio show, the old radio show of A Christmas Carol is actually pretty spooky. You can find it, it's like from the 20s or 30s, and I think it's on YouTube is a place you can listen to it. It's probably free somewhere else too, but that is an actually super creepy rendition of A Christmas Carol. The voices they have for like Jacob Marley and some of the ghosts of the past and the present and the future are pretty spooky and unnerving. The whole sequence leading up to Jacob Marley and that, really well done. So how does R.L. Stine treat A Christmas Carol, and does it live up to the spooky hype? Because R.L. Stine here is kind of touting like, I'm taking A Christmas Carol and I'm actually making it scary. Because at this point, a lot of adaptations have been made of A Christmas Carol. There's a lot of books, there's a lot of retellings, a lot of movie adaptations and TV film and cartoon adaptations, and people generally know the story, which I think takes away a little bit from the spookiness of A Christmas Carol. It is the reason in that one Christmas song why it says, we'll tell, ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. Like, that is the reason that song says that, because of A Christmas Carol about ghosts and Christmas. So in this particular book, you have a character named Rick Scroogeman, which this is set in modern day. This book was written in 2016, so it's set in modern day. You have this character, Rick Scroogeman, who is a bully. He is so mean to all the other kids in his class. He pulls their hair, he stomps on their feet, he pushes their faces into drinking fountains, all the terrible things you could think of, he's doing it. And here's the interesting thing about Stine's characterization of Rick Scroogeman, which kind of changed it up, because a lot of times in middle grade fiction, there's a bully. And either the bully is just misunderstood, so he's mean to everyone, or he's got something going on in his life, and so he's taking it out on other people. It's just very, very typical the way that bullies are often handled in middle grade fiction. However, here, R.L. Stine does something really interesting with Rick Scroogeman. What he does is he makes Rick Scroogeman a character who actually thinks it's funny what he's doing to people. He thinks it actually is a joke. And he's wondering, why is no one else laughing with me at these jokes that I'm making? And I thought that was super fascinating because it was kind of different than other depictions of bullies. And this wasn't like a, come on, don't you think it's funny? This is so funny what I'm doing to you. This is he actually does think it's funny. And he's wondering why no one else laughs at what he's doing. And I thought that is a very different kind of motivation for a bully character in a book. And I think it's very interesting. However, that's about as interesting as this book gets. I guess if you have never read A Christmas Carol or have no idea what that story is about, this book would be really interesting probably. But because I know the basic plot and storyline of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, I kind of knew where this book was going, and it went exactly where I thought it would. The only interesting part to me that was a little different was the Ghosts of Christmas Past section, because in that part of the book, it was a little bit different in the way that R.L. Stine depicts the past and makes it where Rick Scroogeman is going into the past. So I thought that was kind of fascinating. And there are some actual kind of spooky moments that were in the past that I thought, oh, that was pretty well done. I like what you did there. So that part was pretty good. But then the present and the future were just so typical. Like, it just was kind of what you always expect out of A Christmas Carol. This book is a little long-ish. It's like 180 pages, which is a little longer than a typical R.L. Stine, like middle grade book, where he kind of keeps those Goosebumps books between like 120 to 145, and even Fear Street, which, Fear Street books are for young adult, but they're usually in the 150 range. And I felt like this book went on just a little too long. I think if it had cut like 60 pages, it would have been like a great read that was tight, did the Christmas Carol story, kind of had all the things you need for that story, and then you're done. And I think I would have enjoyed it a little more. Being at 180-ish pages felt like it dragged it out just a little bit, especially at the beginning. I thought the beginning kind of went on and on and on, and I kept thinking, okay, when are we getting to the stuff I know from the Christmas Carol? Like, we're establishing that Rick Scroogeman is not nice, like that's what we're doing here, but when are we gonna get to the stuff where the ghosts appear? Because that's kind of what I'm here for. So, at the end of the day, who is this book good for? I think this book is good for if you're trying to introduce a Christmas Carol story to a middle grade reader who's never read the Christmas Carol, does not know anything about it. Sure, and if they like R.L. Stine, great, go for it. I think if you're a major R.L. Stine fan and you've got to read everything he's ever written, sure, pick this one up, do it at Christmas time. It'll be a good Christmassy read, and it'll be enjoyable. Like, it was enjoyable. I didn't hate reading it. I just knew everywhere it was going. There were no real surprises. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but it still was fine. It was a passable read. It wasn't a bad book, of course. So at the end of the day, I would give Young Scrooge a 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't amazing. It didn't blow me away. The only interesting thing, like I said, was that characterization of Rick Scroogeman, which I thought was interesting and maybe even worth reading just for that, possibly, but just knowing that the rest of this book is going to be what you expect from A Christmas Carol. Told in an R.L. Stine way, like there's some humor here, obviously. There's some moments where it's trying to be spooky and do some good jump scares and things like that. But overall, it was a little passable. In fact, I think there's a better R.L. Stine, not written by him, but in his universe, Christmas Carol retelling to read. And I might be talking about that very soon, so you'll have to check back for that. But until next time, everybody, keep reading. Bye!